Throughout my time on this channel and covering so many different Hellraiser stories, there has always been one reoccurring Cenobite that I have absolutely fallen in love with. And while this shouldn't be the case because he is definitely, by far, probably the worst creature that has ever come out of hell itself, it is nonetheless one of the more interesting characters and somebody that always actually ends up getting, a pretty well-written story, something with a little bit of substance, and something that honestly usually ends up making me feel a little bit gross. And that is exactly what this story today is going to do a little bit. Because the heinous acts of this creature would always leave somebody in the worst place in their life that they could possibly be. Somebody who would kind of take control of their lives in the most minuscule of ways and just learn how to twist them from the inside out, physically and mentally all in one. And the only character that I could possibly be talking about at this point would happen to be Face the Cenobite. We've seen this man working with a lady who was, trying to make big deals in Disneyland. We've seen him out in the distant stars among space. And most importantly, in one of my favorite videos that I've ever done, we have seen him in his very own origin story, and something that you should probably go watch now if you have not seen yet. But overall, Face is a character that always gets the meaty treatment. And every single time that we see him, it's something that is always very, not only spooky, but, very up the Hellraiser alley. And something that I was very glad to actually see this man pop his ever-festering face out once again. Because as I am getting farther into these stories, into some of the more deeper issues of the Hellraiser franchise, I gotta say, I'm getting a little bit worried. It would almost seem like a lot of these stories don't quite have, what they had in the first couple issues. When I first started doing these videos, managing to be, very creepy, very ambient, and very naughty feeling. But with some of these later issues, it would almost seem like some of these stories just don't really quite have a very good direction. Or they're, trying to be a short story, trying to wrap up a small tale in, under 3 to 4 pages at max. And while this is okay, and we have seen stories out of this franchise that have, done that in a very good and timely fashion, when it comes to these later issues, they just, kind of begin to get very ridiculous and a little bit boring, I must say. And while I thought about kind of covering some of these, it only always leaves me feeling just really bad for not showing you the ones that actually matter. So what we're going to be doing today, everybody, is covering a story out of book 11. A story about a man named Leo, and a story about a man who only wants to help everybody around him. And a story that would actually take place in Detroit, Michigan, only about 2 to 3 hours away from my house, and something that I personally can appreciate. But throughout this story, we would slowly learn that maybe Leo isn't so perfect after all. That maybe his hunger strike and his leading of the homeless population through the cities demanding shelter, food, and respect aren't exactly everything that this man would encompass. That maybe Leo, deep down inside himself, would have the desire for selfishness. And this is something that only Face himself could figure out a way to bring out. But nonetheless, everybody, I deeply hope that you enjoy this story. It was definitely one of my more favorite ones out of the later issues, as I said before, and something that I couldn't be more excited to share with you. So, everybody sit down, turn the lights off, turn your pumpkins on, and let's dive deep into the inner workings of this man's mind. Detroit. The heat of late summer is giving way to a cold wind off Lake St. Sinclair. But the streets never change in this part of the inner city. Hot or cold, people still hurt without the basics of life. Food, shelter, and respect. Leo Chabal is here to make a difference. Chabal is leading the march on behalf of the homeless. Here he comes, never slowing, although he is near the end of a 2-week hunger strike. And I'm sorry everybody, it's hard to talk about the crowds chanting "Listen to Leo." Today's march will commemorate the opening of another in a series of Street Haven shelters. Another wish come true for Leo Chabal. Chicago, then Pittsburgh, Houston, and now Detroit. Cities across the United States are responding to Chabal's call to establish street shelters. And Chabal is prompting comment from seemingly every quarter, including today's surprise. A point of agreement between Father Peter Abaddon and TV evangelist Samuel. Father Abaddon described Chabal's success as a miracle, and Samuel agreed, saying that the renowned priest can't be wrong every time, but heaven knows he does try. We're going to see if we can have a word with Leo Chabal. It won't be easy. The crowd is still chanting so loud. Surely this must be how it feels to be inside of a tornado. Mr. Chabal! Oh, he can't hear me. Please, I want quiet. And the crowd falls to silence, like the slack-jawed quiet of a sudden death. And I must say, before we get too far in this story, I would like to explain that Father Abaddon and this other TV angelus Samuel would be reoccurring characters that wouldn't be seen in this story, but, would be heard, that you can actually find in book 9 or 10, I believe. On a story about two characters that are very heavily and would be inspired by none the likes of Joel Osteen, or the terrible menace that is Kevin Copeland. And this is something that I've kind of found throughout a lot of these other issues, and that slowly they are turning into something only known as the Devil's Brigade. And while I don't really quite understand what exactly they are going for with this, it would almost seem to be that, maybe they're almost done introducing new Cenobites, that we're actually getting to see some sort of plotline being written out across all these different characters. And while this is very interesting, I still really haven't seen enough crossover to kind of dictate to cover these stories in the order that they come in. But nonetheless, with the crowd finally dying down, we would finally meet Leo Chabal for ourselves. And with this would come the first iteration of Face revealing himself. Mr. Samuel, did you ever expect such a turnout? No, never. I think if those thousands of people have joined in support, the donations of money from out of nowhere, it's all beyond my wildest wishes, Mr. Chabal. Wishes, exactly. I seem to be learning that wishes actually do come true. And if you were to make a wish right now, it would be to help even more people. But suppose you were going to wish something, just for yourself. What would it be? Nothing at all? No selfish pleasures, Mr. Chabal? Open up, Leo. Answer the question. And finally, Face himself would be revealed. And as we had seen in the next coming panels, we would actually see him working on some sort of creature in front of him in a very dirty fashion, just picking and pulling different pieces out of this creature as it would scream in agony, as Face will begin to kind of plot his way into this man's life, trying to figure out a way to kind of show the public that maybe Leo Chabal isn't everything that they would ever be. And while I'm not quite sure if Leo is the great man that he says he is, or if it's more a fact that Face is kind of pushing and prying these parts out of him, later on in the story, we would find out that Leo Chabal, while a good man in today's world, wouldn't exactly be the best person in his past, and might actually be the reason of why he's actually, paying such a price on his own life and sacrificing just so much. I watch him through the passageways of cold, white light, just as I know the eye of Leviathan is on me. Hell mandates a world in control, and I am in charge with keeping Leo Chabal in line with Hell's interests. But I don't understand him, and I've strengthened his cause, made his wishes come true, and the man ought to be satisfied. But here he is, still, the yammering gadfly, out to change the world. What would it take to lock him into the status quo, to make him happy? No, nothing as simple as this. Leo Chabal is a puzzle I intend to break open, because Leviathan wills it, because this is the time of configuration, and for another reason, he intrigues me. Our little nip and tuck will have to wait. It seems I have another sort of surgery to perform on Leo Chabal himself. Although not with a knife, I'll need something with a sharper edge for deeper cuts. The woman, the one in Chicago, I can use her like a scalpel to cut out his very own heart. Lisa Ann Mercer. She fights my control, but he is drawn to her. I don't know why. She's nothing special. But then, I've no use for love, and only for lovers. And as we learn that Face has more sinister plans for Leo Chabal himself, through a woman named Lisa Ann Mercer, I can only help to think to myself that this is also a reoccurring character that we have maybe met, or maybe even just one of her family members. After all, I do really believe that I have seen such a Mercer in one of the previous stories, and while I can't quite pin it down, it only leads me to more fascination, more desire, and obsession to get further and further through the Devil's Brigade parts of these stories, through these different books, and something that I'm more and more excited to actually get into, because while a lot of them don't really quite seem to be, something totally up to snuff with, books 1 through 5 of the Hellraiser franchise, things that I've really come to enjoy in this channel, it would seem that maybe the writers of this franchise would have something planned for the end of it, and while I can only hope this is true, sadly, I have heard the opposite, but we'll never quite know until we or me read these for ourselves. But with the next couple of panels, we would see Leo Chabal handing a gift to this Lisa Ann Mercer, and finally beginning to show the cracks in his exterior veneer, through his own hand or through the hand of Face himself. Why, it's beautiful! But Leo, how could you afford this? Don't worry about it, Lisa Ann. She knows the necklace is worth a month's salary in her job, director of a small-time community theater. But she never cared for money. I allowed myself a little bit of payment, that's all. More like a little weakness. I'm tired, Lisa. So damn tired of denying myself. I have needs of my own. Selfish pleasures, and she can't seem to think straight, and she feels lightheaded, a strange sudden pain in the back of her eyes. I want you to love me, Lisa Ann. Call it a wish come true, Leo. On a count of 3. Leo, you took money away from the Street Haven, stolen from the donations. Is that what you're trying to tell me right now? 1. Yes, I stole them, there's no excuse. 2, 3. Lisa Ann, what's wrong? Wrong? Why, nothing. Just 1, 2, 3, I love you. You're the dreamer, the wish maker. You're the magic man, Leo. Anything you want, it's yours. Anyone, me. How strange it is to see him through the woman's eyes, to read his emotions, fear and bewilderment, yearning and surrender. I am here, like a wasp in her mind, inside of her, the ultimate role. I am the smile on her lips, and I am the words in her mouth, and I am the touch of her hand, and I am returned to my calling as the actor in the mask. And in the next coming panels, we would see something truly sinister, as we would see Faze completely embody this woman. And while cracks would begin to show to Leo that maybe Lisa Ann isn't quite herself, he would truly never really realize, and by the end of the story, it would be too late. As Faze would begin to use this woman's body to not only push this man to some of his more deeper sensations, some of the hidden pleasures that he's hidden inside of his body for so long, but upmost out of all of this, the secrets that Leo has buried inside of himself for years and years. And this really is a very sinister story by the end of it. We've never really seen Faze completely take over somebody's body. We've seen him use people, we've seen him make deals, but never in the history of the Hellraiser franchise have we outright seen this man take over somebody's body. And this only shows just how powerful of a Cenobite Faze is, and a person that I crave to see in one of the next movies or the TV show, if that is something that is ever going to happen. Because while Faze is somebody who is always extremely hard to read about, somebody that always brings very nasty and very uncomfortable feelings to my mind, he is nonetheless probably one of the most best and well-written Cenobites in the whole of the Hellraiser franchise. And I'm not really quite sure who we have to contact to kind of let them know this, but it is something that I think the Hellraiser franchise really needs to lean into when it comes to any of the TV presentations or the movies that will be made in the future. We really need to kind of brush past Pinhead himself. After all, he has had his time, and he's already seen his best years, as we've seen in the first 1 through 3, and then Hellraiser 2022. And I think it is finally time that we delve a little bit further into this franchise, into the lore, and into the world of the Gash, to things like the Scarlet Gospel, and to the many short stories that we've covered on this channel. And really, it's only something that I could dream about. But as our story would continue, we would see Leo and Lisa Ann out on the town in the night of their life. This part of Chicago's Michigan Avenue is known as the Magnificent Mile. For Leo, it might as well be another dimension, a place where nobody lives in need. I don't believe this. $50 for a steak, and I'm laughing. You deserve it. We deserve it. I feel so clean, so alive, so far away from the shabbiness of our lives in the real world. But this could be our real world, Leo. We could belong here. Belong. I'm only here because I took money that belonged to the shelter. This is just a night off for me. But right now, looking at you, I can't say that I'm sorry. Can't see how it could possibly end. Excuse me, mister. You got any spare change? No, leave me alone. Hey, I've seen you on TV. Yeah, on the news. Listen to Leo, listen to Leo. Well, I'm listening, Leo, and all I'm hearing is just one more big lie from one more big fake. Get out of my life. Dead and gone, damn you. You've ruined this. Here's money. Choke on it. Just die. Just die. Leo, come with me. You can't risk being recognized acting this way. I wish you would die, Lisa Ann. Never mind it, Leo. Just remember who you are. You're the magic man, Leo. Lisa Ann, where are we going? Shh. Quiet, Leo. To a place I know. A place where you'll forget all about that awful man. The community theater. My life's work. Dragging Tennessee Williams into the gutter. Oh, I'm just joking. Don't look at me that way. I wish you could have seen the show one night before it closed. I'll show you. The stage is still set. Step into my parlor, Leo. It's time for some fun in the dark. It really is a parlor, Lisa Ann. It's just a stage set. We used it for the glass and menagerie. The story of a girl who aches for somebody to care about her, to listen to her secret thoughts. Let's play a game. Pretend we've just met, but there's something about me. You want to trust me. Tell me secrets. Lisa Ann, you're crying. Oh, am I? And as we have come to reach the conclusion of this story, this is where we would see Face's final plan take action, luring Leo out to tell one of his deepest secrets to this woman, and to unleash this hidden anger that has been built up inside of him for so very long. And a story that this man would tell that would bring shocks to, my brain. Something that I find very uncomfortable, very dark, and nonetheless something that I would never put past any story involving Face the Cenobite, because this man always brings the heat, the icky feelings that would eventually haunt us in our dreams. And it's only stories like this that when I'm alone in my house reading, to my creepy music, to set an ambiance for what I'm about to be doing, that would leave me in just a weird mood about what exactly am I doing constantly reading these really, frankly messed up stories that involve terrible tragedies that I never really thought I would be covering publicly online on the internet. But even so, we do have ourselves a little bit of fun here, don't we? And I must say that before we continue, this has to be some of my most favorite artwork that I've actually seen for Face himself. For when we actually see the splitting of minds between Face and Lisa Ann, I truly think that the artwork here depicts a very interesting side of this man. And it's honestly been quite a while since we've seen this person actually use somebody else's face to, dictate his plans, to actually usher out the events that he would need to happen to bring grace and pride to his master and the ever unholy Leviathan itself. But with our next couple of panels, we would see Leo finally tell somebody his deepest, most profound secrets that he never thought he would share for the rest of his life, to the reason why he would give every part of his being to helping the less fortunate. And something that I think will shock you all. Her mind is resilient, and I can't stop her from crying. She's smart, and he might actually take the warning. But hear me, girl. Your tears won't set you free. Tell me what you've never told anybody else, Leo. Alright, but there's nothing to tell, so I'll make up a story, alright? I'll say, once upon a time, there was a boy named Leo, and Leo had a baby sister, the prettiest baby of them all. But Leo hated her. The baby stole his mother's love, his room, his toys. But one day, Leo got even, and he used the one-eyed teddy bear, soft and furry, and smothering. Say night-night bye-bye, Lisa. He killed her before he knew it, and Leo ran, but he had nowhere to go. And he learned the fear of being homeless, alone and hungry. And the police found him. He was too scared to hide, and he deserved to be punished. But they wound up telling him that his sister had died from SIDS, crib death, and nobody ever blamed little Leo. I swore then that I'd be sorry forever, and that I would make up for what I'd done wrong. I swore to do good for the rest of my life. But you weren't sorry, were you, Leo? No, I still hated her. I wished I could kill her again. Again! Kill you again, pretty baby. Say night-night, bye-bye, Lisa. No! She can feel the touch of death is on her, but she feels not the evil inside of her, the monster she will never comprehend. She is dying, but she is dying with her own name, Lisa Ann Mercer, and her own soul. Be glad for me, Leo. I'm free. Escaped the demon, the Cenobite, the Face. A poignant demise, Leo. Death seemed to befet the tragic heroine. Still, I wonder how Tennessee Williams would have played it. She did so much love the man's writing. He wrote that only animals are compelled by instinct, Scene 4, and the glass menagerie. He wrote, surely your aims are somewhat higher than theirs. But here we are, Leo. And how could you answer him? How much higher could yours possibly be? And this, everybody, with one of the most insanely tragic stories that I've seen Face kind of usher out of somebody, nonetheless himself, as we've seen out of his own origin story, would be the end of this extremely weird story about a man who would only seem to want to do so much good for the world around him, only for us to find out that this is all some weird kind of payment to himself for the tragedy that he had committed as a young child, actually ushering his sister into the afterlife in one of the worst kinds of ways. And I can only imagine that after doing such a deed, and actually running away and realizing that you don't really need to hide, that you are deserving of punishment of any kind, only for everybody else to come back around and tell you how sorry they are for the loss of this tragic scene, would have to be something that would only plunge a level of guilt that I could only imagine at this point, and something that really only seems befitting of somebody of Face, of somebody of the Hellraiser franchise, and of a story that could only fit this particular Cenobite. And it really is a story that, like I said, gives me, makes me feel very icky inside, makes me feel very gross, horrified, and, very confused of what all is actually going on between Face and Lisa Ann herself, and whether these stories, really are connected to a previous story in the Hellraiser franchise, and something that I'm going to have to go back to and actually read through every one of these things to see if I can come across the name of Mercer. Because while I'm not really quite sure if it is her that is ushered in this terrible fate of being literally controlled by Face the Cenobite, or rather one of her parents or a close family member. But yes, everybody, after reading so many of these different stories, it really is a breath of fresh air to finally come across Face, and to finally come across a story that, is actually very interesting, very horrifying, and just has a little more substance than some of the other stories I've been reading out of these things. Because I believe the last story I read before this one was literally about a man learning about the fractal shapes of snowflakes, and how he can actually bring more order to the chaos that is, the thought that every single snowflake is different. And from this, actually making some sort of deal with Lamarcan companies themselves, or whatever that would mean, and, bringing this presentation to a Cenobite who would actually come to realize that, every shape is kind of different, and that every shape is in their own chaos. And this, would obviously make the Cenobite mad. And this really was a story that I just didn't like, and it is something that I will eventually cover on this channel when I've, nothing better to be covering. But more of just an explanation of my worry of exactly where these comic books are going to start going, because after all, these really are a cherished event on this channel for me. Something that actually breathed life into this channel and brought a lot of you amazing viewers. And for that, whether these stories kind of go downhill, I can always thank the Hellraiser franchise for. But nonetheless, everybody, I do hope you enjoyed this story. Like I said, it's always a very unhappy surprise to kind of see Face once again, but overall, every time I see this man, I can usually tell that something very interesting is about to go down. But yes, it is September, everybody. We're going to start nitpicking the stories that I want to cover from here until the end of October. I really think I'm going to be starting to dig down deep into longer stories, so if you see a bigger gap in time between my uploads and things, it is only to actually bring you something that really, is good. Something that I can be proud of making, and something that I think you all will enjoy watching when we can actually get a full-fledged story, something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and isn't just kind of a rush to the ending of a heinous story to some sort of horrific tale. And while these bigger projects usually tend to, make me very nervous to even start, because one, I know how long they're going to take to edit, and two, the actual filming session of these things can go awry very fast with, just kind of losing all steam or talking for over an hour long and just getting completely tired out. But overall, I do think it is something that will kind of benefit this channel, something that you all can enjoy, something that I can enjoy making, and something that can honestly bring me a little farther out of my own man-made rat race where I feel like I need to be putting out a video every single week, because it's just frankly something that isn't always going to be able to happen. I'm almost 30 years old, I have a full-time job, I have a life and friends and people that I want to spend time with, and yeah, it's hard to find a happy balance with YouTube, and maybe that's something that we can actually talk about later on. I'm sure a lot of you will understand, go full on into a hobby of yours and kind of make it into an unpaid job. Even though, once in a while, I'll make a couple bucks off these videos, and I do want to thank you all for that. But I'm beginning to ramble, and I don't know what I'm saying, so yes, everybody, have yourself an absolutely fantastic night. Thank you so much for participating in these videos that I make. I never thought that we'd almost be reaching 2,000 subscribers. It's insane, and it's something that I never thought would happen for me on YouTube. So yes, once again, I'm thanking you all, and I will see you on the next episode of From the Heart. Comment down below some of your favorite spooky season things that you like to partake in, whether it's movies, books, comics, music, I'd love to hear it. It's really, truly one of my favorite seasons of the year. Something so nostalgic and something so powerful for me that I get really sad when it's reaching the end of it. But, you know, we're literally just getting into it. We literally have not even started, so it's not something I need to really be worrying about. But anyways, have yourself a fantastic night, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.